My name is Michelle. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm a career and student success advisor here at Humber College. We have a great panelist today, awesome moderator, and it's going to be a great conversation. So we're going to get started next with our land acknowledgement. We'll get that video set up and we'll get started.
This land has always been a meeting place, and the stories of this land go back thousands of years.
These stories rest underneath concrete streets that were once prominent pathways and trade routes.
These stories permeate through crevices in the land and flow through ancient waterways.
Back when the shoreline was further north and the trees were standing in water, these stories stood with them.
Takaranto.
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 Tikaranto, where the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples gathered, traded, and took care of this dish with one spoon.
A shared land and our shared responsibility.
But what knowledge?
What knowledge?
What knowledge?
What knowledge must be acquired before we can acknowledge?
We meet you here today in search of stories.
What stories will you share for future generations to learn?
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Patrice. Appreciate that. So before we get started, we do have some housekeeping rules. Please, 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 when you are coming in, ensure that your mics are muted, please, just to reduce the background noise, especially if you have to leave in the middle of the meeting and return. This way we don't have any disruptions with the chat. You are also welcome to turn on your camera if you are comfortable. There is no pressure at any time. So you're also welcome to do that as well, or you can also just stay off camera if you'd like. After the presentation, we are going to have a brief Q&A where you can raise your hand virtually, and you'll also have the chance to unmute your microphone and ask your question right away to our panelists. So once you have your chance to ask your question, just make sure you put your mic back on and that you come back off camera as well, or on camera if you'd like. So let's move to the next slide. So now we're going to talk about defining our conversation. So this is about facing unique challenges in the workplace, and we're going to be working and discussing it around equity deserving groups. So what are equity deserving groups? They are people that refer to communities who are historically and who are currently underserved and underrepresented. These groups include women, persons with disabilities, racialized persons, and persons from gender identities, and persons who identify as 2S LGBTQ+. And from here, I'm going to pass it over to Nafisa, and she is going to do our introduction for our moderator. Nafisa, please take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone, or good day. Please forgive me for my voice today. My name is Nafisa. I'm the manager for advising services. My pronouns are she and her. And I would like to acknowledge, as an immigrant, I sincerely respect the land that I now call home. I am committed to act as a good neighbor on the land where my young family is being nurtured and raised. I would also like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for sharing space with us today. Today's topic, facing unique challenges transitioning in the workplace, is an important topic for all of us in this virtual space and beyond. But before we get into today's discussion, which promises to be a good one, I have the privilege of introducing today's moderator. She's an Emmy Award-winning host, TEDx speaker, host, and executive producer of the Patricia J Show, with over 470,000 plus Instagram followers. Patricia, I'm probably going to need tips, okay? And if you're still unaware who I am introducing, I am sure, or will assure you, it's not me. You'll likely recognize this Canadian TV personality and Seneca alum as a Arrive Alive Drive Sober ambassador. With over 12 years of experience as a co-host on CP24, Toronto Breaking News, and CTV, or recognize her from her own online glam fashion boutique created by Patricia herself. Please help me to welcome Patricia Jaggernauth, our moderator, and for today's panel. Patricia, you've conquered many mountains with resilience and care, and yes, you have persevered. On and off screen, your voice has spoken to so many young people, including my son. I recall my son being super excited when you will come on TV and you'll be like, PJ is on TV. And he was especially happy to know that you share a Jamaican and Guyanese heritage. One specific incident that I remember is when you hosted the Caribbean Carnival coverage. And he said to me, Mommy, her dad and mommy are the same. They were born at the same place you and daddy was born. And PJ and I, we're the same mix. So Patricia, I would like to say not only thank you for sharing your time with us today, but also thank you for creating space for him and many others. I would like to pass it along to Patricia, our moderator for today.
Well, thank you. I didn't know that I would start this by having a tear and wanting to cry. Thank you for sharing your story, your family story, your son's story. It means the world to actually hear these stories. And in fact, I will say that throughout my career, it is those very stories that kept me going. It is community that always poured into me, where I then felt, once I was blessed by working so hard and paving the way and breaking down barriers and smashing glass ceilings, that I had a duty, a responsibility for the generation to come. That when I looked ahead, I didn't really see a lot who were kind of breaking the way and kind of showing us the way through career. And sometimes it can be hard because people are there, they are doing their best to survive, they are doing their best to have their voices heard. So to then also be a leader of change and voice and entrepreneurship and just overall, holding the community on your back, sometimes, you have to realize you're not in this alone, and you definitely can reach out to community, because when you hear stories like that, you realize love extends past family, and that family can also be who you choose to bring into your heart and into your home. So thank you all here today for having me into your homes, your classrooms. And I know that, facing unique challenges and transitioning into the workplace is a little could be a scary situation. You're in school now, the future is uncertain, and you don't know what is to come. I think that's the beauty of life, though, a little bit of mystery. Imagine if we all knew what was to come. We wouldn't enjoy the journey. We wouldn't enjoy the process. We maybe wouldn't even work as hard because it'd be expected. So it is a blessing to have a little bit of those jitters, as some of our panelists today may have, and to also not feel the fear in sharing your stories, because you won't realize how many commonalities you actually have in your stories when it comes to your pursuits in every way, shape, or form. So don't be afraid to use your voices, share your voices, speak your voices, and reach out to community, because without community, what do we have, right? And big up Scarborough if anyone's from Scarborough, and Seneca alumni in the house right here. Okay, without further ado, that's enough about me. I want you all to meet our panelists for today. These are 4 incredible individuals. They should be so proud of their journeys. Let's start off with my Indo sister, Miss Trinidad. There she is. Akeisha Lari. There she is on screen. Beautiful smile. She is a manager of student inclusion at Seneca. Yes, everybody welcome Akeisha to the chat today.
Thank you so much.
See the emojis down there. I love that. Welcome, Akeisha. Okay, let's introduce my boy, Jamie Everton Caine. Mr. Jamaica is what we'll call you, Jamie. He is the co-executive director of Tubman Community Organization. Everyone give it up for Everton or Jamie. You can call him both. I think he likes Jamie a little bit better. All right, let's introduce Mark Dunn as well. He is the employment consultant for Empowering the Future. Everyone put your hands together for Mark Dunn, who is also a Jamaican native. I love it. And last but certainly not least, there's her beautiful smile. It's Ren, short for Renee Navarro. She's a Trini sister as well. She's the owner and operator of Beer Diversity. So there she is, representing her area of expertise as well. And we will, in fact, dive in. And ladies and gentlemen, feel free, panelists, to also tell us a little bit more about yourselves as we delve into your questions today. So what I'll do is I'll pose each question. We have about 7, potentially 8 to 9, up to 10 before all of your questions here today, everyone. So make sure you're listening and make sure you're jotting things down. I always like to have pen and paper because questions will come up and you may forget them. And we want to pose Q&A for you at the end of this chat. So Write down your questions. We'll start with Akeisha, then we'll go to Mark, then we'll go to Renee, and then we'll go to Everton Jamie, okay? So first question will be this. Can you tell us about a unique challenge you faced when entering your chosen career? Akeisha, you go first.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. I just want to start by just saying I love the energy in this space right now. I'm feeding off of it. It is so beautiful. The emojis, keep them coming, because, you know, on this virtual platform, it's so nice to see people feeling what you're saying. So keep it coming, keep it coming. So yes, that's me. That's my beautiful smile. And yeah, I see the emojis. So good. And yes, my name is Akeisha Lari. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an Indo-Caribbean woman born in the beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago. I am an only child. I am now a mom of 3 littles, 9 and under. I am a partner as part of a multiracial family. My partner, he's from Iran, and we are raising these children to be proud of all aspects of who they are. And I think, you know, it's very fitting to start an introduction and the first question with that, because I wasn't always proud. I wasn't always this confident. And I think, you know, our identity, who we are, plays a huge part in our career, in our academic journeys. And, you know, a unique challenge for me when I first began my career really centers on this idea of professionalism mixed in with a little tiny bit of imposter syndrome. And as I was thinking about this question, I actually took a trip down memory lane and started thinking about my time as an undergrad at Toronto Metropolitan University in the social work program and getting ready to graduate. And in my final year, I had the honor of getting to do my placement in this wonderful program called the Tri Mentoring Program, which is a program to, you know, help students at TMU feel part of the community. Especially it started for racialized and first generation students. And I got to start my career there. As I graduated, there was a job opportunity opening up. And within about 2 months of graduation, they offered me the job as someone that had been working there as a part-time student. And I jumped at the chance, and it was a mixed bag of emotions. The first thing was this excitement, first job out of undergrad, happening 2 months after I graduated. I recognize that does not happen for everyone, and that's a huge privilege. And then the nerves started to kick in, because my entire time that I was a student, it was okay because I was just a student. I was just learning. It was okay to make mistakes. And then all this fear started to come up, and this idea of professionalism started to come to my head of, what does this all mean? What do I have to change? What do I have to do? What do I have to learn? Who are these professionals that I've always seen? And unfortunately, back in the early 2000s, they weren't people that looked like me. In the field of student affairs, it was a very white-dominated field. There were very few professionals that I found that looked like me, and I was about to enter into this field of student affairs and working at an institution. And the nerves crept in, and I just couldn't figure out how I was going to navigate this. And I remember spending the first little bit of time preparing for that first day of work, questioning, why me? Why did they choose me? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I think of it as a challenge based in my identity, because of the fact that I didn't see people that looked like me, and I didn't feel like I belonged there. And you know, that saying, fake it till you make it, that started to creep into my head. I was just like, okay, well, you know what you can do, Akeisha? Just look the part, act the part, show up, and see where it takes you. And I remember, you're gonna laugh at this, Patricia. I remember pulling aside whatever little $50, $60 I had. I ran to the Fairweather outlet on Kennedy Road, put together some buy 2 for $10 pants, buy 3 for $5 blouses, started to make these little outfits, 1 black shoe, 1 brown shoe, look the part, professional. This beautiful curls, let's straighten that. Let's straighten that right now. Or if it wasn't straight that day, let's put it in a bun, because that was professional. And, you know, I had to pack my lunch because I didn't have money, but let's pack the least smelly food, because, you know, no one wants to go in with their curried chicken and roti and smell it the microwave. And I started to do all these things to just try to fit that part of what I thought a professional would be. And now looking back on that, I realized that so much of that was from a lack of confidence in who I am. And when transitioning into a new world of work, I think what I should and what I wish I'd done more than anything else was center myself. center who I am, recognize what I would be bringing into that first job, how awesome I was at my job that they decided to hire me on afterwards, and forget about all that other stuff, forget about all of those other fears that was holding me back, and position myself to be the authority of what I was bringing, the knowledge I was bringing, the education that I just completed that was going to help set this first generation program up to the next level, which it ended up doing. But that fear, that fear couldn't leave me. And I think of that challenge steeped in my identity and all the things that I wanted to hide about myself is now the thing that brings me into these spaces, the thing that I start my conversations with, just as a way of paying homage to that little Akeisha. And so I tell you that to start off, these unique challenges we're going to be hearing about and talking about often can be turned around. And I'll leave it there for now.
I love that. And thank you for bringing us into your world and being vulnerable in, of course, your journey, because that's the thing, right? We are not always so vulnerable and we always think we're in it alone. Again, reaching out and doing what you have to do and hustling and struggling and break that imposter syndrome. We have to break it because we are more than deserving of taking up space. More than deserving. And I think, I think Mark knows this as well. So Mark, we'll have you jump in here as well. I'll repose the question to you. Can you tell us about a unique challenge you faced when entering your chosen career? Mark, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. And it's an honor and privilege to be here today. So I just want to thank everybody. When it comes to unique challenges in my first career, I would like to start back when I was growing up, coming to Canada and being here. I started playing hockey at age 4. And the truth of the matter is, being a little person of color going into an arena of everything else is white, the first thing they do is they turn heads, right? They turn because it's different. And when you're going through that at a very young age, at 4, 5, 6, 7, and you start to get exposed to different aspects of challenges such as racism and different things like that, it toughens you up, but it doesn't toughen you up to have a chip on your shoulder. And the truth of the matter is, when I was growing up and playing hockey from age 4 till I was 28, I started to actually embrace that in a way that allowed for me to be positive around staying true to myself and not allowing the judgments of others to define me, because I define myself. Most importantly, I define my self-worth. And I had to learn how to be resilient in the face of adversity at a very young age, going through those arenas in small towns and big towns and traveling throughout Canada and sometimes in Europe. And I had to allow my game to speak for me, to override the ignorance of the racism and all the things they were saying, the bigotry and things of that nature. Now, how does that play over in my unique experience of my first job? Well, after graduating from Carleton with a BA in sociology, anthropology, I had applied in my last year over 750 jobs and only heard back from 3 places. 2 were in the States and 1 was in Canada. And in that last year of approaching the job market, I knew what to expect. So I needed to be resilient and I needed to be optimistic and realize that as long as I am staying consistent and persistent in my activity, I will be able to get to where I need to get to. And the first job that I actually, secured was a position that I actually wasn't even qualified for. I went into a private school to go for a guidance counselor position, international private school. Through my first interview, they were impressed and they brought me back for the second. But what they offered me was a teaching opportunity with no teaching credentials. And I admitted to them and I said, I didn't go to teachers college. So I'm just letting you guys know up front that I'm not here to sell myself on something that I can't do. I'm just letting you know what I can do. And they're saying, no, we want to train you. We want you to have a bit more engagement with the students because we think you will have great rapport with our international students. And that might also lead to us having great retention and most importantly, bringing in more students over time. And when you're leaving university and you're thinking teacher, job, and you're like, wait, how come everybody's saying this is not how it works and now it's working out this way? So you kind of go through these emotions or emotions, if you will, of just processing it. And upon accepting the position and then getting into the job, what I realized was that I was actually the first Black man they hired in the 30 plus years of that school's existence. They never had a person of color in that school that was not a student, a staff member. So that goes back to the whole teachings and the development from the sports component, where sports was leveraged, the strategies, the things I learned were leveraged into helping me and guide me, not just in the career, but to guide me through the process. Because I think what most people are challenged with today is understanding that job seeking is a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You have to have a different psychology going into this new world that we're in. And the new world is basically about testing you to see how strong you really are mentally, because it is more a mental game than a physical game. So my mental development, my mental toughness came from sports, which I leveraged into my education and then into my careers. And there has to be some truth and acknowledgement of realizing that a piece of paper to a certain degree is not going to get you where you need to go. It's more of the work ethic. It is more of the principles. It is more of the values. It is more of the resiliency, the optimism to be able to put yourself in a better position, and then not allow yourself to chase something, but to seek something. Because when you're seeking something, you're going through a process that you're going to flow with. When you're chasing something, you're going to run out of endurance because you don't have the energy to persist, because you're sitting there thinking, oh, how come Patricia told me she did it this way and she got it, but I'm doing the exact same thing she just told me yesterday? How come I'm not getting there? And it's because we are trying to measure up to other people's standards. And unfortunately, just like a unique fingerprint, you all have a unique journey. I understood my fingerprint, and I've continued to stay consistent and persistent with that throughout my life, because I can no longer stay in the lane that's the same for everybody. I have to stay in the lane that's meant for me. And I'm comfortable within my own skin to be able to do that. Now, it doesn't mean that I didn't have any challenges. It doesn't mean I didn't have any difficulties. What it means is that I didn't stay in that state, because I'm human. I'm allowed to have those feelings, and you all should give yourself permission to have those feelings too. The only difference is are you staying there, or are you looking to move from there? And that's what it's ultimately your decision. And what I choose to do is one thing, but I would never tell you what to do. I would rather inspire you on how to do it. So that's just a little bit about unique challenges, and I'm happy to get into more detail later, but I'd like to pass it on to my colleagues.
Mark, first of all, emoji heaven for you right over here. The emojis are on fire. Let's see more of it. More maybe hands and rounds of applause. That'd be amazing. And Mark, yay! And Mark, what I love, I had to write your quote down. Don't chase something, seek something. That is powerful, and I might steal it, but I will credit you.
Thank
Thank you for sharing your story. I believe it's one of resilience, it's one of not giving up, and it's one of perseverance. And you're right, believing in yourself. You fostered that inner relationship with baby Mark, and all of those things that you went through led you to where you were. Yeah, exactly. Led you to where you are today and where you kind of showed up. But it's so beautiful because it's almost like, you know what Drake says, God's plan. And no one can divert you from that path and that journey. This is where you're meant to be. So thank you for the goosebumps. That was amazing. Thank you. And as you said, we'll pass it over to our colleagues here in the chat today. Up next is Ren Navarro. I'll pose the question one more time for you, Renee. Can you tell us about a unique challenge you faced when entering your chosen career? And of course, tell us a little bit about yourself as well, since we're only just now here.
So I think the question itself is so interesting because you're asking about a chosen career. I've never had a chosen career. It's same as Mark and Akeisha, it's these, child of immigrants. I'm from Trinidad. I've been here since I was 5 and having to kind of adapt to things. And having a voice that sounds like a Valley girl kind of got me through a lot of things in terms of working in a call center for 15 years. No one knows what I look like. And so I learned how to be anonymous, but I learned how to be very powerful in that anonymity through a lot of years. And I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I don't know if I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, all these years later. But I think that what I always knew was that I wanted to leave my little patch of grass as green, if not greener, when I finally left, this mortal coil. And I think that's always been the challenge, is how do you keep that grass green when things are not going the way that they should be, the way that, you're in the face of adversity, when people don't believe who you are when you show up somewhere. You know, you hear this voice over the phone, and then I show up, and someone's got to suddenly shift their brains to get into that mindset of dealing with me. You know, I think that through the years, I did a lot of corporate work and learned that just because you think you're corporate and doing the, you know, the Akeisha special and going and buying, like I went to Orifice Road. That was my jam. And you know, and buying the stuff to play the role, because you have to wear the uniform, you have to wear this outfit and have to put on this mask to kind of get you through pieces, and realizing at some point that you didn't have to do it, because if you really wanted to be your true self, you couldn't continue to wear the costume. You had to shed the costume and just be like, this is it. And if you like it, great. And if you don't like it, great, because I can't change. And so, you know, I fell into the beer world in my 30s, not realizing that it was something for people who looked like us. And so realizing very quickly that I had to work a lot harder. I mean, everyone, you know, every person of color knows this. You've got to work 8 times harder than anyone around you just to be taken even vaguely seriously. And when I was in this job, realizing that there was no real diversity in terms of who I was working with. I'd go out for drinks and my friends are the United Nations of friends. But I'd get to work and it would be me, right? It'd be like one black woman for 100 white guys. And so I started asking a lot more questions, and beer diversity was born out of that, because they always said we want more diversity. And it's, you can't have diversity if you don't create a space for people to come in and ask questions and have a drink and talk and share your space. And kind of, you know, the pieces that I had gone through over the years made me realize that it's not up to people just saying, I wish there was more diversity. You have to kind of kick the door down and make that space and take that space. And so, you know, I've been doing that for the last 6 years and slowly moving into some other pieces. So I've expanded the company into B diversity to deal with non-alcoholic pieces, kind of going back into that community outreach. And when I say community outreach, I say community change making. Like I'm already reaching out to the community on a daily basis. That's how we find our people, and that's how we grow and learn and expand. But you know, you go in and you make that change and you highlight the people who will make the change with you. And so that's kind of the next piece I'm on. So the challenge is that I never had a chosen career and that I still don't have a chosen career. My challenge really at the end of the day is, will my little patch of grass continue to thrive and survive when I'm gone? And that's the challenge that I face.
I love that. So eloquent, taking up space that was already meant for you, Renee. That's the way you do it. And it's such an inspiration to occupy space in an in an industry where some would say we don't really belong. What business we have here, right? Well, you were like, well, I'll be the one that shows you. I'll be the history writer, maker, changer. So amen to you, and keep on going, girl. Keep on going. All right, let's bring it to our chat now. Everton, Jamie Caine. He's also a Jamaican native. Everton or Jamie. Actually, what would you like us to call you? Everton or Jamie?
JJ, Jamie, Everton. It's cool.
JJ
cool.
even.
Cool.
We're like that. We're real personal. Okay, JJ. Okay.
Right, right.
I love that. I love that.
Let's just make it clear from the jump and from the very beginning. My pathway is far from traditional. Like, dropped out of high school, moved 16 times over 16 years. Altered school didn't work. Horrible grades. I mean, I think I was looking at a report card cleaning up the other day, and it was like C, high school 40s and 50s. When I look back on it now, I didn't have the confidence to do well in academia. I didn't know from a cultural place, and a cultural identity wasn't really fostered. Like, still trying to figure that out as a young person. But I knew one thing, I knew I wanted to make a difference for whoever came after me. I had a vision, and if there's anything that anybody takes away today, is you need to have vision. You need to have vision. I went to Humber College as an adult learner, and immediately just that networking, putting myself out there. I mean, what do I have to lose, right? Trying to navigate education, current work, future career, a plate full of responsibilities, caring for a chronically ill, now terminally ill parent, among other things. Point is, we all have things outside of of school and outside of our career paths that impact and influence our career paths. I completed the CYC diploma. I graduated with honors. How does that work? This guy who's 40s and 50s, and now he's in college and he's doing well. It doesn't add up. But I had support. I had folks inside Humber College who really, they were on that bus with me, right? Supporting me from the back, supporting me from the side, and whatnot. The career path was never clear. One professor in particular said to me, "Keep on going." I was like, "Man, this stuff's hard." Like, I'm certain that there are people on the call right now who are just like, "I'm at my wit's end. I'm done. I'm over it. Whatnot." I took his advice. I went on. I met with a amazing, phenomenal career advisor who also supported in multiple ways. Finished my Bachelor of Child and Youth. Again, it's just, I know that I need to occupy space where I can inspire and evoke change. That's part of that plan. That was definitely in that plan. That wasn't so clear. And even now, as I'm at OASI and I'm a student in the Masters of Teaching, I look back, just so often, I'm in a master's program. I'm at University of Toronto. That doesn't add up. But, it's those folks who inspired, who look like me. And, for those who can relate, walk it like I talk it, so as to say, walk that life, speak that life, into existence. The challenge is I don't fit that traditional box, and finding that space versus trying to make a space for me. You know what I mean? A space that's not for me, rather. My learning style is different. My interests are different. I just think differently. You know what I mean? How does this transpire to a career path? And how do I bring all of who I am, being unapologetically who I am, not apologizing, into those spaces, right? I think there's always going to be a space for you. It's just, again, recognizing that not every space is your space. Not every opportunity is your opportunity, but it exists and it takes work. It may take some time, but it's there. I think I should pass it on to other folks. And again, there are other questions. We'll learn more as we kind of go through today's panel. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jamie, for bringing us into your world, even if it's just a little glimpse of all that you've attained and all that you, succeeded with. Remember, you got to bet on yourself before believing others will bet on you. And I think we just learned that from your scenario and story, that you bet on yourself. You said, "I am worth it." And look at you now, thriving in a place of learning at a master's level. Are you kidding me? After getting below 50 in mathematics in high school. P.S. I was right there
English,
too with
math.
you. So big up to you. English and math, that was terrible. And here I am as a journalist and I failed English. So, right? So big up to you, JJ. And thank you for bringing us again into a little bit of your world. So what I wanted to do for the first question is have all of you really get to know our panelists. We'll then have a nicer, a little bit more of a flow, a faster flow now, because now we know them, all four of them, who are also fabulous and taking up their space, rightfully so. So let's go to question number 2. It says here, could you please share what you feel are your top 3 or 4 skills, so 3 or 4 skills that you have developed further because of having to navigate through systemic and or individual discriminations in your career? We will start with Akeisha.
All right, thank you. Thanks to my co-panelists. It was so nice. Like read the bios, but it was so nice to see that come to life and to get to know all of you a little bit better. So for me, I think I did 2 to 3. No, I did 3 skills. So I will tweak the question a little because it said developed, but I continuously think that I'm still developing these. They're still work in progress, much like me. So the first one that came to my mind, and I think I already shared a little bit of this, is that idea of building my skills in confidence. I still got, like, right before this, I turned off my camera and I was like, okay, calm down, Akeisha. I still get nervous. I've spoken at a bunch of things, keynotes, whatever, you name it, I've done it, and I still get nervous. And that confidence piece is a skill that I think is you're always going to keep building it. But like I shared, what helped me to build that confidence is that idea of flipping the things that made me feel unconfident before, flipping the things that made me feel like I didn't belong, that I was out of place and all of that, just figuring out a way to turn it around, finding pride, finding beauty in my uniqueness, and flipping that so that I can feel that confidence coming from within in those moments where those things that used to be reasons that people discriminated or made fun of me or called me names or, laughed at what I was wearing or whatever, turn that around to now be the thing that drives me and builds my confidence. The second skill I think to share is this idea of communication. And it's such a loaded word. I think there's so much to say about communication and all these things about knowing your communication style and this, that, and the next. And I do think that work, that personal development work of understanding how you communicate is so important. But what I sort of learned, again, stemming from that confidence piece, is that I found myself communicating from a place of feeling less than and communicating to seek out other people's guidance or answers, or like I found myself communicating for the sake of other people versus what I needed, if that makes sense. And when I learned that skill of communicating to put myself forward, I think is when I really took that to the next level of that communication piece. And so I think the best way to describe this is a quick example. Even to this day now, when I'm writing something or writing an email, the way I sort of think of communication is less of the, can you do this for me? Or it would be great if you get this to me at this time. And instead turning that into still a wonderful, kind, good soul from a good place, but it's more of a, I would like this from here, or I need this, or this is what would help me to do my job, or things like that. And I think thinking about the question around like, how does that help me navigating the system? I think it's about knowing who I'm talking to and knowing what I need from them, and then positioning myself in a place where I can get those answers and I can, again, put myself forward through communication in a clear and direct way to figure out these systems. And then the last part of that really for me is about finding these loopholes in these systems, the little things that people don't want you to know about. I am what I say is probably the most ethical rule breaker that there is out there. So I get nervous. I follow the rules. I am the person that will like wait in line, even though there's 10 people cutting in front of me. But then when I get to the front of line, if they've run out of whatever I want, I will be okay, well, I paid my ticket, so let's find a way to order one more round of pizza so that I could get what I want. And I came in and I stood in my line for my pizza, so get me my pizza, please, and thank you. And I think that confidence and that communication style and all of those things playing together as a way to navigate through these systems that are meant to act as barriers for racialized people, for women, to us LGBTQ plus people. And I think that when these barriers exist, those two things of confidence and communication, I'll drop the third and fourth one because I don't want to take up too much time, even though we should take our space. I think those two things hand in hand together are really what have propelled me to be able to navigate those. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Akeisha, for sharing. Okay, we will move to Mark. Mark, did you want me to reiterate the question, or are you okay to go?
Sorry, it's fine. We can go ahead. I was listening, so I'm all engaged. I'm all in. So when I look at this question, I want to bring out, I have a foundation that I need to have as something solid to work off of. The foundation is consisted of patience, purpose, perseverance, resiliency in order to make progress. That's my foundation. Now, to look at the three areas that I've used to help me address kind of individual discrimination in my career, or even have a sense of it, it all comes back to the core, which is the individual, which is me. The one thing I have understood in this short life that I've had is that I can only control what I can control. I can't control what's outside of me. So I have to be thinking more strategically. So number one is know thyself. It is important that I had to learn how to strengthen myself through self-awareness, know my skills, know my value, know my brand, and know my flexibility and my threshold. That's number one. Number two, especially in the professional world, was value evidence-based results with a focus. I always knew that if I produced and I had the evidence to support it, I can't be denied, right? So at the end of the day, number one, provide exceptional service is what I focused on in my career. I've worked, just to give you some context, as I mentioned in my intro, I was a teacher / guidance counselor. I've worked as a mental health therapist at the Canadian Mental Health Association. I've done business development. I've also done management roles with other companies. I've done professional fundraising and success coaching. So my skill set is vast, but it's a reflection of these core values and principles. Developed a customized strategy. I believe that I can't teach nothing or share anything if I'm not doing it myself. So I've always learned how to use customizable approaches that are related to my skill set, my strengths, and my values, and educate myself on what I can control. I firmly believe that when we get caught up into what the world wants us to think, we're in trouble. We're at the mercy of status, title, income, prestige, or fleeting commodities. We have to really start to hone in on what I call focusing on the micro level, which is you, to be able to make macro differences, which is outside of you, right? And the last one that I have here is on my list is make a covenant or a contract with myself. Making a covenant or a contract with myself helps me stay purposeful. It helps me stay motivated to work towards a purpose, a goal, or a direction. This covenant is involved to help me ensure that I won't allow fear, doubt, insecurities, ego, or other people's judgment of me to hold me back from wanting to make progress. And it also allows for me to realize that the enemy, or if I'm dealing with something that I feel that there's an enemy, it's not the enemy outside of me, it's the enemy in me. So if there's something that triggers my feelings and emotions, which I have to control, and I do have control, that's allowing me to question myself, I've got to go to the root cause of that and identify that. And then the covenant also keeps me mentally strong in the way that if I can take care of me, I can help the we. We are living in a time right now where most people are either all their energy goes towards outside of them, and they don't have the reserves to help them on their inside or with their close family, or they put so much energy on the family and they don't have enough for the outside. So it's a fine balance. So as you're going through your career and you're trying to figure out the next steps, it's not so much the next steps, it's about what are the options that I have as pathways that I can work towards in order to help me stay focused on the task at hand, which is what are the skills that I'm going to obtain from this position? What's going to help me be valuable? How can I use evidence-based information as my brand to elevate my awareness of who I am? And most importantly, how is it that I'm going to be able to take what I'm learning and developing and strategizing on to grow? Because there isn't an end result. So when I looked at this question, I really wanted to think of it from a completely different framework, from the individual lens, where we can more or less work on ourselves to be better for others, because we need that now more than ever, because the demand of the external world is at a higher level, right? And it's and the world today is doing a great job of exposing us for who we really are underneath the skin. And if we don't have a human connection to who we are, the world will expose us on that. And then it will lead to other domino effect challenges. If it's mental health, emotional health, physical, drug issues, or whatever, it's going to trigger, right? So it is really important that we take that time for the me in order to take care of the we, and balance out what are the things that we need. Where can we be resourceful in order to find the things that work for us, right? I call it not best practices anymore. I call it, what are the right practices for you? Because when you can find the right practices, you can feel confident going out in the world and not worry about the discrimination. It will roll off your back, because most people are going to be like, how come that doesn't trigger you, Mark? I'm poking at you. Why aren't you getting upset? And it's more of, I'm rooted in something that you can't see. So the best analogy is a strong tree has strong roots under the ground that nobody sees, right? But everybody sees the top. So you can attack me at the top all you want. It's what's underneath the ground that you can't get to, right? And that's how we need to think as individuals before we come together as a community. And I would like to pass it on to my colleagues.
Hold on, period, mic drop. Boom, right there. Mark, by the way, I have a business idea proposition for you. Can you please write a book of Mark-isms? Because you got so many of them and I want to use them everywhere I go. Give it up for Mark and put those emojis right here if you want him to write a book on Mark-isms so we can use them in our life.
We're all in this
incredible as
together. We're all in this together, everybody. We're all in it together. All good.
We are. But no, thank you again, you and Akeisha as well, for your leadership and your great, strong words. We'll pass it now to Renee to reflect on this question and also give her 3 to 4 skills as well. Go ahead, Renee.
Yeah. It's hard to follow Mark after that.
Jeez.
I think that's, you know, we talk about resilience and we talk about it as being you're resilient in the face of very bad things. There needs to be a resilience when you're in the middle of good things. You can't take it for granted. You have to remember that, you know, it's kind of that like carry the good feeling with you. And when things hit the fan, that's the resilience that you're pulling on. And, you know, instead of always looking at it as just being the negative, like what's that positive nugget in there? I love facts. I am, you know, if you've got a trivia team and you need like a third, call on me. I think that knowing, right? Like, you know, it's that knowledge is power. But don't be afraid to share your knowledge. And that's where we always fall down because we don't share it. We think that if I have the knowledge, I have the power and it is mine to keep. And it's if we're going to be change makers and we're going to improve the lives of, you know, of our lives and those around us, well, we have to share what we know. And even if you think it's the smallest thing, share it because someone is going to be blown away by that fact or that piece of info. I think that, you know, it's the thing that got me through a lot of like hard times and it's gotten me to where I am now. It's just take the time to read, take the time to listen to people, have people tell you their stories, because the more information that you learn, it impacts you in ways that you'd never even expected. And that again will change on, you know, what you put out into the universe. I'm kind of this like crunchy granola with that piece of like what you put out is what you get back. And if the knowledge that you put out is dreadful and full of despair, you're going to get it back. So it's, you know, think about that piece, think about the resilience in good moments. And the most important piece is authenticity. You got to be yourself. You know, I said earlier that when I started Incorporate, it was all about costumes. The second I got to be me, it meant that I actually came to the table as me, which means that I gave you my real work, and I gave you, you know, the picture of what my worth really was. Because if you're playing a role, you're not even giving 50%. Forget this 100% thing. You know, you're not giving anything. You're not getting anything back. You don't learn anything. So your knowledge levels change. I mean, you know, Jamie's talking about going back to school and doing his master's and having this period of time where like he wasn't doing well in school. Obviously things are changing. So there's that authenticity. When you come to the table as you get to gather what's at that table and you can proudly carry what you've received and you can show it to other folks. So I think that those are kind of my 3 must-haves.
I love that. I really, really love that. And Renee, you're so right. You've got to be unapologetically you and just know that you were tailor-made to his perfection. And so don't compare because, yeah, no imposter syndrome. You just walk into that room, guys, and you say, this is me, take it or leave it, which is what I think JJ also does as well. So JJ, go ahead, dive into this question here. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so you know, I remember a couple of years ago I entered a space and I said something. We were in a presentation in the community, and you know, I said, hey, you know, I learned differently. And looking back, I mean, I was going to the space just to learn. I didn't expect an actual employment opportunity to be fabricated from just that engagement, right? Of hey, I meet at the intersections of race and ability, right? Um, and that really helped to inform, you know, let's say I tried to narrow it down to 3 things, or 3 skills rather, from that encounter. And the first and foremost would be networking, but even beyond that, like being really intentional and forming and sustaining those meaningful relationships in order to move and progress. Like no man is an island, like my mother would say, right? No man is an island. To get somewhere, to get things done, the most effective persons in business and in any type of field that you can think of are able to form and sustain these meaningful, these intentional relationships, identifying where allies exist. Not every company is your company, So really honing in on those things, and where those supports were. You know what I mean? How can I also be the support of others? What do I bring to the table, right? You do hold a seat at that table. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't, right? It might not be at the front, it might be on the side. You know what I mean? We all have things that we bring forward. Identifying those opportunities that could challenge me to be better. But also, really looking at the different perspectives of other people in the fields that I'm trying to go into, whether it be education or social services, etc. Right? But again, you need to be able to network. You need to be able to speak to other people, which brings me to my second skill, which is being emotionally potent or emotionally intelligent. Again, any leader, community work, tech, business, whatever you're doing. Those folks who are higher earners, with higher earning skills, are able to read and interpret the emotions of other people, being able to derive meaning from what the unspoken is being spoken is crucial. Fine, you have your hard skills from work, you have your theory from school, perhaps you did a placement as well. But being emotionally potent is really putting all that to use in a way that you can lead. Again, I think everybody on this call, how many people do we have total? We have maybe 50 people on the call. Everybody has the potential to be a leader. But you need to be emotionally potent. You need to be able to tap into the higher level skills that you have, being able to identify not only your own abilities, not only your own strengths, but also your opportunities for growth in relation to the spaces in which you're occupying. My last thing would be, leading with accessibility, right? Again, I identify as having an accessible need. It's an invisible need, and I'm open with it. What the heck? How are you Black and going out and speaking about these things that, I guess, from a traditional sense, it doesn't push you forward. It actually pushes you behind. But you are in control of your own narrative. You're in control. You are the writer, you are the reader, you are the author, you're the editor of your own story. So, being accessible, moving beyond myself and my needs, recognizing what those are, definitely for sure, and really putting my best forward to lead with that lens of how to self-improve, to improve my environment around me, to make that more accessible, how to create the type of workspaces that are inclusive, and break down barriers versus creating additional ones for folks who walk a similar road like myself, regardless of what intersection you meet at. Being that voice for change it can be hard. It can be daunting, but you need to lean into that. Being that person who is open to that change, being that disruption when there is none. Being okay with the reaction of others. Going into an interview and asking for these things. Negotiating that wage. Yes, you have these needs. You might get something positive, you might get something constructive, but there's always something to take away. Being okay with no and viewing it as an opportunity for why and how helps to separate yourself from the competition and other people. So those are my 3 skills that I think were really crucial for me being able to navigate education, work, and just life as a whole.
I love that.
Thank
And
you.
What really resonates, JJ, is when you talk about the word no. I did a TED talk at Toronto Met U, and the topic is actually no is a 3-letter word. And what you just said resonates so much. Having the confidence to walk up to your employer and be like, hold on, I've been here for X amount of time. I haven't received a raise. I'm worthy of a raise. I've done my part. How come I haven't had a raise? Can I have a raise? Not being afraid to, as you are already showing up, yes, you're getting paid, but it's fine to ask for those necessities, especially when you've put in the work. And what I also love about what you said is that you talked about occupying your space at the table and occupying a seat at the table. But remember, even in this life, if they don't give you a seat at the table, honey, all of us here, we can build our own table. Trust and believe. Build your own table, honey. You inspired me, JJ. I'm going to go build my own table. I'm just kidding. I'm here. Okay, thank you so much, you four. Let's now go to the third question. I know I see the time. The conversation is so amazing, but let's try to get to the third question now. Question is, and Akeisha, of course, you'll go first. What piece of advice would you give yourself when you were starting a new career? Go ahead.
So I think it really comes really nicely after what was just shared, because I think two of the things were already shared around authenticity and being emotionally intelligent. And that is some advice that I would give to younger myself, along with this idea of being patient and really believing in myself. And so I'll share myself. I'm one of those people that are called futuristic. Have you ever done any of those personality assessment type things? You get this like thing back and it tells you what kind of person you are. And so I got futuristic in this one. And what it basically means is that like my life, I've had it all planned. And I cannot tell you how true that is. I remember doing an exercise in, I think it was grade 5 or 6, and we had to like map out your next couple years. And I was like, okay, so I'm in grade 6 now. I'm going to graduate in grade 8. Then I'm going to go to high school, 5 years. I was the last that got OAC. I'm going to graduate from high school. I'm going to go to university. That's 4 years. When I'm done, I'm going to meet the person I'm going to marry in university. And then we're going to get married. We're going to get married 2 years after university. I'm going to have my first baby at 25, my second baby at 28, and my third baby at 30. And that was my life. And I had it planned. It was written somewhere. It's in one of my like journals or something, whatever that thing is. My mom kept everything. And that was my life. And what I would go back and tell that wonderful human being that had her whole life planned was cool, but be flexible and be open to those changes, because I definitely had moments where I was not. And when things did not happen the way that I had planned, it was really devastating. It was truly a moment of being like, well, what did I do wrong? And it became questions of, questioning myself. What happened? Why didn't that work out? Why did I not meet that person? Was I not outgoing enough? Why, why did this happen? And all of these questions and doubt came into my mind. And I think what I would give as advice is, yes, make those plans, do those vision boards, do the things that you need to do to have that vision as was spoken about, and to have that path that you want to go down, but have that built-in flexibility. Honor yourself, honor your path, honor your journey, Akeisha, and know that it will be okay in the end if you just stay true to who you are. That authenticity is so important. People tell me all the time that like, oh, Akeisha, when you talk, like you don't even know what you're doing to just inspire people just by being yourself. They're like, I had a presentation my first day in my new job when I started at Ontario Tech, in between TMU and here at Seneca. And that very first presentation I did, this young woman came up to me. She was in her 4th year after my presentation. And she said, in my 4 years in university, you are the first brown woman that I saw at the front of the room. And I had a moment being like, 4 years of university and I'm the first? And it took me back a little bit. And I was like, I didn't even think anything about it. I was like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to speak, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be on this panel that I was on, and it's going to be great, and all's going to go well. And when she said that to me afterwards, I just started to think about, how the little things that we do, the person that you are, can influence like so much. And I don't even know half the time the people that are going to remember this talk or be like, oh, that person is just like me. I also have my life plan. But she said this thing about being open to it. And that's happening right now, where it's not going like I planned and I'm feeling all these things. But I remember that girl and on that panel talk telling me that it's going to be okay, and that to just have confidence and be okay with however it turns out. And I think that's so important when we're having these kind of big conversations about transitioning and all these new things that you all are going to be experiencing as you move from the safe place that is your college or your university, post-secondary, whatever you're doing, into what could supposedly be, this really, really daunting world of work that you're about to get into. And I think being patient, being authentic, having those plans, being open and flexible are the things that will actually help you in that transition piece. Stick to the plan, yes, but know that it might look like this, and that's okay, and it'll get there eventually. And I think that would be the advice that I would want to give to young Akeisha, but also to all of you, and to just trust yourself. At the end of the day, trust that what you're doing is for a bigger purpose, and you'll get there.
Well said, Akeisha, well said. And so many commonalities. And I'm sure everyone here is kind of like, yeah, feel that. I am that. I am like this, right? Look at all the love you're getting. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay, Mark, we'd love to hear from you. Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, when I look at this question and I was thinking about it, it was all coming down to the fact that number one, clarity is power. For myself, unfortunately, I had a guidance counselor in high school who told me I wasn't going to be university material, and they specifically strategized my education from grade school all the way to high school to do only remedial courses and have options of being a woodworker, bus driver, or something like that, which there's no problem with. Not a problem with those careers. It's not what I wanted. So when I was told that I wasn't university material or college material and my only options was a gas attendant or general laborer, I had to take my life in my own hands. And the clarity is power mindset came into play early. What that consists of is, number one, I needed to know what my outcome was. What was my outcome? What was my purpose of wanting to pursue a post-secondary education? What was the goal? And the goal was more meaningful for me from a personal standpoint than what the external world's point of view was, because I would be the first person in my immediate family who would have graduated from university or college. So that was the main piece. And I had to use that and leverage that into my next point, which was my why and developing a why. The why was the family, but the why was also other combinations of things such as the guidance counselor and other people who were the individuals who had put me down already. I had to not fight them physically. I had to use my brain and fight mentally with a strategy. And then number three was to develop that unique strategy, the approach. What am I going to use and how am I going to go about doing this? And last but not least, I would assess my results or my outcome. After being rejected by every university in Canada because I didn't have OACs or I didn't have any of those general level courses, I wrote a letter that pleading saying, you know, this is my situation. I just want one opportunity. And there was only one university who gave me that opportunity, which was Thunder Bay, Lakehead University in Thunder Bay, sorry. And that's where I ended up going to take my chances. And then that prospered into me getting into my ideal school that I wanted to go to, because then I would apply as a mature student. So it was a strategy I used. That being said, you know, you have to look at living a fulfilled life as a way of saying to yourself, okay, how flexible am I within myself? Because today flexibility is crucial to define. The reason why you need to be flexible is because the world is no longer linear since the pandemic. It was easier prior to the pandemic for things to be linear. You could kind of say, I'm going to go do this. I'm kind of going to go in here and this is the direction I'm going to go and this is what I'm going to do. But with the pandemic and what it did to us is that it flipped everything upside down, which means that you've got to understand the marketplace is now the determining factor of your value proposition. And you have to put yourself in a position to then say, what are my options in putting myself out there? Where am I willing to start? And know that where am I willing to grow and go towards, right? To live that fulfilled life, you got to have a mindset of being able to pivot, assess, and do. So you kind of pivot, assess, and do. Pivot, assess, and do. Because that's the world now, though. That's the world now. And that's why you need mental endurance and physical endurance to handle that, because layoffs come, things that are out of your control happen. So then do you kind of process that and then get your seat, you know, get back into the moment of applying for jobs, or do you feel sorry for yourself and not do anything? How are we going to pay these bills? Well, I know I have to go get a job, so I have to figure out where to apply for jobs. Instead of, I'm not moving, but how are we going to pay these bills? If there's no action, there's no outcome, right? And the fulfilled life component of being able to look at doing good for yourself is all about you maximizing your potential, but it's not maximizing your potential in one area. You may have to look at maximizing your potential in multiple areas depending on what you want to do, because the world is no longer the same. So you might do something like, for example, myself, I started off as a teacher, but then my second job was working in the mental health profession. I didn't even know anything about mental health. I had no idea, but yet the executive director hired me and I spent 10 years in that profession, right? So I built a unique value proposition by understanding that clarity is power. There's a strategy, there's an approach, there's a flexibility required through that approach. And then you just have to kind of ABT, always be testing, always be trying different things, because when you're ABTing, you're always be testing, you're learning more about yourself. And you're realizing that, holy, I didn't realize I could do that. And I got hired for that. You know, somebody wants me for that. I didn't know that. right? And you have these moments of where the education system can't prepare you for, where your parents can't prepare you for, happen for you, because it's the world's view of you in addition to what you see of you. So if you feel you can't do something, but you're going to take a chance and try it anyways, and you get it, that's a reference point that clarity is power. Because now you can go through the rest of your life and resort back to that one experience that you took a chance and you bet on yourself, and it worked out for you. Now, is life really that difficult? Because once you have a reference point, you have to ask yourself now from here on in, is life really that difficult? Is that, because remember, your worst day is someone's best day in the world. So if you can't keep that context and perspective, it's going to be challenging to overcome. But if you can have that perspective and you can understand that your worst day is someone's best day, and every day when you wake up, you have an opportunity, you just might not know what that opportunity is yet. You've got to see how important it is for you as an individual to wake up with that mindset. So the clarity is power is about you. It's about because you're the expert of you, right? No one else is the expert of any of us here, only the individual, right? Your unique fingerprint means you are a unique being, right? And being unique means you can become elite. Not the problem, but the challenge is let's go test that out in the world and see what it says, right? Let's go test it. And let's give ourselves a chance, right? And let us be flexible within that chance so that we grow, we nurture, and last but not least, we live with passion, because we are here to make the world a better place one person at a time. We are not here to rescue everyone. We can only do our part, right? If a bricklayer is laying one brick at a time, we have to make a difference with one person at a time. And that's our legacy, and that's our brand, and that's how I would answer that question.
Oof. Goosebumps again, anyone? Goosebumps. Mark, goosebumps done. Thank you so much, Mark. You guys are actually blowing my mind. 25 years of experience in my industry, and I'm learning still so much today and seeing so many, like, I'm having aha moments. I hope a lot of you are having those moments too, though I know you are going into the workplace. Some of this stuff you will resonate with, I promise you, because we're all on our journeys together, as is, of course, JJ. So JJ, how would you answer this question? What would you tell baby JJ?
Yeah, what would I tell baby me? I guess two things, very, very
Right?
short, is no matter how much planning or preparing you think you've done or you've actually done, things will always change. I didn't plan to work in DEIA, diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility. I didn't plan to continue my studies. I didn't plan for any of this. But life is not linear. And you need to have trust in yourself and have trust in that process, regardless of how difficult it may feel in that moment or at that time. The second thing I would advise myself is seek out wisdom, but also recognize that you have wisdom. Don't misplay, don't underplay what you have to give, what you have to contribute. And the last piece, very succinctly, is recognizing your worth. When you recognize your worth, you are able to view the landscape of the workplace very differently. A career is what you make it. Focus less on a specific job and more on cultivating your niche. Prioritize building high value, in demand skills, whether that be facilitation, public speaking, digital design, whatever it may be. When you do that, people respond to you differently. You enter the room differently. You experience disappointment and loss differently. You know what? This wasn't for me. Okay, let's go somewhere else now. Versus feeling bummed out, right? Lean more into discomfort because that's how you grow. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautifully said. If it's okay with our panelist, I would like to skip question 4 and head straight to question 5 because I kind of feel we delved. Yeah, Mark, everyone agrees. I would love to do that just because I feel like we've already touched on the equity deserving communities, our communities, and how we've been able to, with unique challenges in our industry, to kind of transition into the workplace, face those challenges head on, and kind of come out as winners. All 4 of you are winners. So I think we can skip question 4. Let's head to question 5. I will pose the first question. Oh, wait, Renee, did we hear from you? Oh, no, we did hear from Renee. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
It's okay. I would
Question
just tell
number
my
5.
young self to like keep going.
Yes. Wait, did we hear from you though?
No, you
Am I-
skipped me.
am I-
You totally skipped me.
Are you kidding? I'm sorry. Oh no. Okay, we're not moving on anywhere because I want to know what baby Renee would tell herself. What would big Renee tell baby Renee? I'm sorry.
That it's okay if you don't get picked for this round because someone's gonna get you in the next round.
Hey.
I legit was not gonna answer the next question till I talked to you somewhere. I got you.
I blame Mark because he's like this philosophical speaker and he's totally made me feel like I'm floating and I'm in heaven and all this philosophy and beautiful words. I just feel so heavenly that my spirit was taken away. I'm sorry, Renee. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
I honestly, like it's all cool if no one picks you because I think that, we always want that validation from other people. And if you don't feel bad about not getting picked, it's okay. And I think that, again, there was no pressure for me to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. I come from a family of teachers. Jamie, I feel you. And Mark, I feel you with these stories of like going in and teaching. And I tried it. And, I applied and I didn't get in and I was okay about it. And I realized that I could do it in other ways. I mean, years later, I'm accidentally teaching. And so my parents, what their wish came true, but I didn't have to do the traditional path to get there. And so it's your path. If we all walked on the same path, we'd all walk it differently. Either we'd rush through it or we'd take slow meandering steps and stare at the foliage around us or stop to play with a dog. That's okay. That's what it's about. So it's how you interpret things and how you live it. And just remember that, like Mark was saying, someone can be doing the same thing as you. You're never going to do it the same way. And if you do, you have to ask yourself why you're doing it the same way. Because are you doing it because it's your authentic self or are you doing it to impress someone else? People will only be impressed with you for short periods of time. If you can sleep well at night for what you've done, then you've done it right.
Amen. See, we couldn't skip Renee. We just couldn't do it. Apologies again, and thank you so much. Let's move on now. Is that okay with everybody, my panelists? Yeah? Akeisha, you going to answer the question now, number 5? Let me read it to you now, okay? So recognizing the importance of self-care and its impact on building career resilience. How do you take care of your own mental health and well-being in your professional careers or within the communities that you work with? Akeisha, let's go with you.
And the timing of this could not be more perfect, of this type of question, because I was just having a really, really great conversation with someone the other day with all of everything going on in the world. We started talking about how are we okay? How are we existing? How are we waking up and doing things when all of these horrible things are happening? And we actually started to, decolonize self-care. And we got to a place where we both realized that we do not do self-care, we do community care. And that is how I think I've managed to be resilient, is with the community of people that are around me. And oh man, I didn't think I was gonna get emotional here, but I think that self-care is this thing that is so talked about and it's so commercialized these days and it's so capitalist and it's so like, you need this, you need a bath and you need to go to this spa and you need to buy this yoga mat and then sign up for this yoga class and do this, or you need this, that, and the next in order to achieve self-care. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it's for me, and that definitely works for some people. It did not work for me. I tried it all. I have all the mats in the corner over there in my house that nobody uses. What I sort of learned is that the best healing and the best way that I get through my days of these tough subjects when you're in equity and inclusion work is through the people that I have around me and the conversations that we get to have to debrief and to heal each other and to work together and build this community in my little tiny family community, in my friendship circle. I'm getting introduced, this is my 2nd month at Seneca, in this Seneca community circle, in this, Toronto GTA circle, and on and all these ripple effects of these circles where these conversations that I had with this colleague is now bringing me to tell you all about this idea of community care versus self-care and which is the one that meets what you need to be okay. And, The other day I had, my family and I, we all sit around we try our very best to have dinner together as much as possible. And it always starts with this, how was your day? And it ends up being these very superficial conversations. And in the last couple of months, I started to move to more intentional questions. And those intentional questions pertaining to things like, what brought you joy today to my little kiddo? Or what was a tough moment today? What was a challenge that you had today? Has led us to have some really good conversations about our actual day and the actual things that impacted us in our day. And I think when I'm thinking of building resilience, be it career resilience, personal resilience, building up my mental health and my mental well-being, it is those conversations that give me an opportunity to share my feelings and have people hear them and validate them and listen with intention of not really giving advice or anything like that, but just listen with an open heart is what leads me to come back day after day doing this type of work. And the question of like, how do you take care of your own mental health and well-being in my professional career? Well, it's in my early years of social work, we were taught to leave work at work and home at home. And I sort of saw that as cool, but I don't think I could do that. So how do I, in my heart, still bring work home, but not let it consume me? And the way that I found, again, coming back to this idea of community and conversation, that is how I actually found that I was able to process things, is being able to bring my work home and talk about it in a healthy way with my family, with my friends, with my peoples, and not hold it in only for this 9 to 5, being able to talk about it in the 5 to 9 as well, and being able to talk about it and process it and have people understand what I'm going through when I'm at work and a student comes to me saying that they need to leave their home because they can't be in their home because they are trans and they're being kicked out. And how do I take that to my kids that I want them to feel comfortable telling me anything? And that opens up a huge conversation with us when I'm talking to my kids and telling them this was my day, because they know mom cares and mom deals with that. And now mom does that in her career, and mom will be okay if I ever come to her and tell her these things. And that to me is this idea of self-care, is like, we are all trying to be all of these things. People hail me as this like super mom and working and education and teaching and this and that and the next. And I'm like, I'm only that because I have the ability to be that with the people that are surrounding me, and they give me space to do that. And I think the more that people can find that place of themselves, what they need to be okay and take it. It can be yoga, it can be a walk, it can be listening to music, it can be a conversation at the dinner table. Take what you need and go forward with that.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, Akeisha. Thank you so much. Okay, Mark, we will go next to you, my friend. You have the question there, I know, so go ahead, take the floor, it's yours.
Yes, so thank you. I think for myself, there are twofold to this. Number one, there are those well-known self-care habits that we all can assess and figure out which ones work for us. If it's the gym, taking a bath, talking to a friend, or listening to music, or writing in your journal. Those are, everybody has a way to customize these strategies or coping mechanisms to their benefit. I do the gym part, which is what I've been doing since I was 12, so that hasn't changed. But what has changed, and what I have introduced as I've gotten older and wise and becoming a bit more wiser about life, is that piece again of taking care of me before the we. Number one, I have to wake up every day with having something to be grateful for. There's not one day I wake up where I don't sit back and have not one thing to be grateful for. It's to the point that I have a gratitude cup in my room, and I have written on these small pieces of paper little things I'm grateful for, and I just pick one out and I say, that's our focus for today, right? You can do that for 30 days and change up the papers and write something else in if you choose to, or add a bigger cup and make a bowl out of it and then put something in a bowl or a fish bowl or something and do it. But that's number one. That helps me get myself in a mindset state of perspective, humility, and gratitude all in one, because I have a chance to take a breath and get up while there's someone taking a breath and not getting up. See, I'm always thinking of my worst day being someone's best day, and that keeps me level-headed. Number two, I don't judge myself. I become my own number one fan, but that's not being cocky or arrogant. That's more of saying, I believe in myself. I know what I'm capable of. if I did not have a purpose, I would not have woken up this morning. So there is something bigger than me that I have to figure out throughout this day. The third component is I try to be accountable as a leader, where I don't allow myself to stay in a mindset where feelings and emotions may come in. And as I am a human being, I do go through those feelings and I do have those challenges, but I just don't stay there. And I have to go to the root cause of the problem, and I have to analyze it and understand it, expose it, and then get rid of it, so that it is not used against other people who are not the problem, because I'm the problem. And that's another piece that I use for my mental health. Another component is that I will always be honest about where I'm at in life. I do not believe in acting like someone I'm not, and I don't believe in using titles, status of any kind to make myself out to be something that I'm not. I am just who I am. And as a person who is defineless with no labels, I can let the world do that, but I don't have to do that, because I don't have to live up to the world standard. I have to live up to my standard. Right? So my mindset always brings me back to my values and principles of my family, of my grandparents in Jamaica, of like people who I've known that have sacrificed a lot. Like little things that I think about are like when I go back home to Jamaica and I see kind of how my parents grew up with like rainwater and these big containers, and they didn't have running water, and it's like they don't see themselves as poor. They never once saw themselves as that. I only see it as poor because of what I'm exposed to here. But in their eyes, it was life. And if they saw that as life and could be happy and get through it, what makes anything that I'm doing here difficult? So it's always having that context, right? And it's always being honest about the context. My other component is I control the effort, energy, my empathy, and the faith that I have as the foundation to my day. I control those things. No one else does that for me. I have to find a way how to find that, discover that, and uncover it throughout the day, but I'm in control of that. And, you know, if I can end off by just saying, I guess for me, knowing that the space I occupy, I have that control, is very important to reduce the loud noise of the world that doesn't, apply or connect with that. Right? So I have to filter through things. I can watch the news and not be upset. I can, you know, listen to something and not be triggered by it, because I'm rooted and grounded. If there's anything with mental health, especially working in the field, and I've seen how it works, if there's anything that I can share, is that I think it's really important that each one of us learn how to stay rooted and grounded, but to define that individually. That can't be defined by someone else though. But you have to define that, what that means, because there's no right or wrong. It's just the way how it is for you. And if we have that opportunity to do so with some of these tips and strategies that I've shared with you, I think we can make each of us better, but then it could lead to, over time, making the world a better place. And I will then yield my time to my colleagues.
Okay, Renee, we haven't forgotten you. Your seat is right here at the table, right beside you. You are next. Go ahead.
Sounds like you feel guilty about that.
I do. Now I have to take you out for lunch and get to know you better. Whatever. You can buy the beers.
Everyone has heard
buy
this.
The beers.
Yeah, all right, I'm in. I think and we don't talk about it enough, but therapy. I wish that it was, you know, universally affordable for all. But the work that I do is, you know, it's beer, but people are really passionate about it in the worst of ways. So I get a lot of trolling and I get a lot of really nasty messages. I don't do a lot of public facing events anymore because my security has been threatened. So, you know, therapy is like up here. Having folks who are working in similar realms, so again, mainly the DEI sphere, that I can talk to, that get it, that understand, because it's great to talk to people outside of the section, but a lot of people are like, it's going to be okay, you can do it. You need someone to be like, yeah, that happened to me and it was terrifying. So find someone who isn't necessarily working your same job, but is in kind of that realm where they would have those same, you know, kind kind of barriers to moving forward, because being able to talk to people about it and being your authentic self is so important. If I have a bad day, I have a bad day. I'm not going to pretend it's good, and I'm not going to remind myself that tomorrow will be better. I allow myself to run through the feeling, because the more that you push the feelings down, the more that it hurts you over periods of time. So, if you got to have a really good ugly cry, have a really good ugly cry. Let it out. Make it one of those ones where you're giving every Hallmark movie a run for their money. So I think that those are kind of the main things that I do.
Wonderful. Okay, Renee, I see here on our PowerPoint that it's now time for the audience Q&A, but I will not be the one once again to forget anybody. So we must give grace to JJ. If JJ can answer this question just really quickly, and then we'll get to some audience Q&As, because it is 1:28 p.m.
Yes, definitely. No, I'll be quick.
Not to rush you though, like take up the time, but don't rush through it. But yeah,
Of course. Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Taking care of self. I mean, for myself, like personally, I think everybody should have a mantra. I have a personal mantra. I start my day off like that. Taking care of myself within community and taking care of my community by prioritizing myself. When I first said it sounded selfish. I get that, but really, you can't give if you don't have, right? And you got to pour into yourself. I think that doing the type of work that's so close to my identity, it's even more important that I really hone into that how I'm doing this, right? Allowing myself to feel what I feel. I mean, I started with Tuesday and every Thursday. Those are my cry days, like somebody said earlier on, right? Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. Don't bury it. Don't leave it for later. If we're honest in our work and honest with our colleagues and our peers, why can't we be honest with ourselves? Ask yourself that. And also, I think very short, two other things would be, I don't prioritize or focus on my areas in which I'm poor, but I really hone in on the richness and the relationships and the success stories of people that I know and success stories of myself and et cetera, et cetera. When you hone in on that, like people pay very close attention to it, and you do get a feeling of fulfillment. It isn't, self-care isn't being the boss. It could be, but it doesn't have to be how it's been socially prescribed to us, and it's a whole industry. You have to commit to the practice itself, and that's the work in itself. You take breaks. I have community care days. Some people call it self-care days. It's community care days where I just pace myself, right? Within the community, yeah, I pour into myself. I'll read, I'll exercise and whatnot, but it's a transaction. It is a transaction when you're pouring into yourself, because you're going to be pouring it out somewhere else as well. So that's about it. I guess the last comment I would have would be keeping in mind that in order to preserve your future self, you need to take care of you today and now.
Amen. Just like Seneca said, now is the time. And that is our time from all of our panelists as well. Please, everyone, I know we can't hear you, but emoji-wise, give it up to our panelists today. We're not done yet. As you can see on screen, it is now time for the audience Q&A. But for me, I will still stay here, but I am going to pass it over to my colleague, Beatrice. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm here if you want to ask any questions as well. Go ahead, my love. Beatrice, take it away.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And to all of our panelists, you guys are absolutely amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better team to have this experience with. Just so motivational, so important, such excellent information shared with you guys. Really totally. Thank you so much. I do have one question in the chat here from Eric. Eric is asking, what piece of advice would you give to someone who is new to the Canadian job market and want to integrate into this new world through his career in forensic accounting and finance? And what other field can you advise someone to get into it so as to be flexible and easily integrate? And maybe I can direct this to Mark. I feel like this might be a little bit more in your wheelhouse.
Great question. When it comes to career advice and people who are looking to step out and figure out how to get into their career, I always like to coach my clients on ultimately learning about what are the 3 career pathways or more that you can take in order to get to your ideal goal of your career. So we're not saying no to the job that you want to apply for, but we're looking at what are the alternative options to help us get to that point if we are not qualified as of yet. If you meet 70% of the requirements on a job description for the ideal position that you're looking to hire and above, please feel free to put your name in the hat. But if you are a recent grad or you're preparing to go into the job market, I would say, number one, what are the entry-level pathways that you could take in that industry? Number two, when you research those jobs that are entry level, what are the skills that I'm going to obtain from that position if I do qualify and get the job that will help me get to my ideal job a year from now, right? And then number three, being able to conduct virtual coffee interviews with like-minded individuals of that industry. You can probably look to connect with like-minded individuals, maybe from a career center at Seneca. You could touch base with the low-hanging fruit there. You can talk to your professors, but you can leverage LinkedIn for sure in being able to access individuals that either are newcomers who are in your industry, so you can get them to storytell their journey of how they started. That's one step. B, you could also look at the fact that when you are doing these virtual interviews or virtual coffees with people, the goal is to hear where that small piece is. Is that small piece related to them helping you find someone to connect to, like a recruiter or a HR person, or is it an actual staff member? Or is it their actual story that you could leverage to your benefit in order to say, you know what, I know I want to get to this destination, but I'm going to start applying for entry level for data analysts. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But the goal is to create those multiple pathways based on what your education will allow for you to do. You're not just randomly picking three, you're actually strategizing to pick ones that are going to be in your wheelhouse related to your industry and related to where you want to go moving forward. So you're not wasting time, right? What you're doing is using time wisely, and you're using that first year of employment as like a paid internship in an entry-level role to give you A, the experience you need, B, developing the skills you need, and then C, giving you the credibility you need being a newcomer or someone who hasn't had the experience. Now you have it within that year. Now you can start applying for jobs a year from now, or look within that company and see if there's promotional opportunities that you could apply for to grow with that company. So you don't necessarily have to go externally if the internal is working well for you, but that would be the approach that has worked for many of my clients that I've served. And they've been very successful using that, especially newcomers, because they need to get their foot in the door. They have all the qualifications, but they just need to get their foot in the door. So what I help them understand is, if you want to get into, let's say, an IT role of some kind, but you don't have the Canadian experience yet, I would say let's go to entry-level data or data entry, but entry level, and let's focus on that, or some kind of entry-level field and in data or that tech piece. And let's get our foot in the door of that, obtain the skills we need, and reevaluate after 8 to 12 months what we have as a skill set in order for us to then look to make a shift either internally or externally. So I hope that helps.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mark. And I just want to add to that by saying, we've heard the panelists talk a lot today about supports and getting that backing. And be sure that you reach out to the career centers in your respective respective institution. That's what we're here for. Great. Thank you very much. Great question, Eric. Lavanya also has a question. I currently graduated and I'm looking for jobs. So how can I overcome the challenge? Any suggestions? And maybe I'll put this out to Jamie. How did you maybe overcome some of those challenges when you were looking for work after graduation?
For me personally, I feel like you study something, whatever it is you study. I study child and youth care. It's focusing again, honing on those skills and that knowledge, not being. And I'm not saying that the person is doing so, but really thinking outside the box as to what could you do, right? I've never worked one day as a child and youth worker, as a child and youth care practitioner, but I looked at the skills and I looked at my interests, And I, even if I couldn't get work, I volunteered extensively while I was at Humber College. I worked at Humber College, you know what I mean, in indirect roles like in student support services and whatnot. Um, again, volunteering is a really good way. Boys and Girls Club, like all depends on what your interests are. But again, don't limit yourself. The biggest limitation that we have in life, I don't think it comes from the outside. I think it comes from the inside. So really thinking outside that box, connect with a career advisor if you're having a hard time, where they can perhaps, get a feel or a pulse for what you're interested in, looking at what your skills are, and then kind of connecting those dots. That would be my advice.
I think that's great advice. Thank you so much, JJ. And I'm aware of the time, so I just want to take this last question if you guys are okay with it. This one comes from Unati. And Unati says, so many people will tell you to do smart work and few will say to do hard work. Well, I personally believe to do both. But I'd like to hear from the panel side as what to prefer. Do you think it's better to work harder or work smarter? And I really want to put this to Ren because I know, Ren, I feel like you've been through a lot, with your, entrepreneurial endeavors. And I really would like to put this out to you if you're okay to answer it.
Yeah. When I read it, I was like, do both. Have the experience where you've done both. So, I've done work where I worked in food banks for a period of time, and that is hard work. I would come home just bloodied and covered in rotting produce and whatever. But it helped with my smarts because it put me in situations where there's a lot of manual labor, but there was interactions with people that in any other career I would never talk to. I would never see them. I would never understand their stories. When I was talking about that piece of knowledge and fact finding, like it comes through the hard work. Smart work, you're sitting around a bunch of people who are book smart. They've got their degrees, they've done their things, but they haven't gone through the school of hard knocks. And so the question is, what do you want to do long term? Yeah, it's the like work smarter, not harder, but that just means that you want to coast. And if you want to really have an experience to bring to that smartness, go work hard. Go work in a spot that people are just like, I don't want to do it. Find the job that people don't want to do. There are so many community outreach things that are hard work, like capital hard work. Go get in there because that is going to give you the smarts that you can take to the other spots down the line.
Beautiful advice. Thank you so much, Ren. And I'm at this point going to turn over to my colleague, Maria, who will finish up with some closing remarks. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Maria.
Okay, thank you so much, Patrice. There were so many takeaways from today's session. As Patricia has said earlier, we need to write a book about this. We will definitely walk away from this session more confident and armed with your shared experiences, the strategies and tips. We are more prepared to face the unique challenges that we are going to face now and in the future. We would like to thank Patricia for moderating today's session. Your expertise, charisma, and of course, your infectious energy carried us through more than 1.5 hours. It made our session very engaging and insightful. In the spirit of one-liners, this is how I'm going to thank our panelists. Akeisha, trust what you are doing is for a bigger purpose. Ren, creating space and occupying it. Mark, don't chase something, seek it. Jamie, you can't give it if you don't have it. Please give our moderator and panelists a big round of virtual applause. I also would like to thank the Humber and Seneca Works Committee for organizing this event. From Humber, Nafisa, Darian, Michelle, and Seneca, Sheila, Beatrice, and yours truly. I am very fortunate to be working with all of them. Special shout out to our Seneca alumni for your support and partnership to make this event possible. More importantly, we won't be here because of you. Thank you for all our students, alumni, and staff of Seneca and Humber. Your attendance and engagement truly made a difference today and contributed to the success of this event. Please help us improve. There's next slide, please. Please help us improve and serve you better by answering our online survey Kindly scan or go to the URL on your screen, and by sending your feedback, you will be entered for the chance to win a weekly draw prize and the Career Month grand prize. Thank you, everyone, and hope to see you in our next career conversation session. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you.
Is that it? Do we go now? I'm
Thanks,
sad.
everyone. This was amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Patricia. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, Ren. Thank you, Akeisha. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Seneca, Akeisha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. And guys, I mean, I think I speak for everyone.